Women's Day, which was great. And today the topic is talking about women in marketing and women in marketing leadership in particular. Ashley, I'm obviously delighted to be talking to you again. You've had an amazing career. So I thought I'd start off by having you share with the audience a little bit about your role at American Eagle and a little bit about your amazing career trajectory. You've been at some amazing brands.
Thank you, Sharon. And I'm equally excited to be talking with you today. I am a brand marketer, but I'm truly a generalist, which means I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. I love bringing brands to life. I love that sort of push-pull of how you make people fall in love with a brand, but also drive a business and really pushing innovation. So before AE, I was at Coach for about 10 years. So I've been mainly in the retail sector, whether that's been more in the luxury space or like I am now in fast fashion. And when I originally went to Coach, I was really focused on global expansion, EMEA, Latin America, APAC, and really pushing that affordable luxury positioning. And then eventually moved into a strategy role. Before that was agency, really media and publishing, and then had landed myself at American Eagle. I initially came on to AE to really work in the international capacity, take the brands from being what I like to call a US brand that has a couple stores overseas to a truly global brand. And then ended up expanding my role to where I am now, where I now lead North America media, performance, engagement, social, talent, all the sparkly stuff here at AE. But my number one priority beyond, of course, driving the business is really positioning American Eagle to be the number one most innovative and relevant brands in the eyes of Gen Z, really being a part of their passions and their daily lives.
Oh, that's amazing. That's quite a tall order to be, top of mind for the Gen Z generation. I know when we met earlier, you talked a lot about what you've been doing over social. Can you share a little bit more about what you've been doing, particularly given the pandemic and, people not being able to go to a brick and mortar store? What was that whole process like for you and your team?
I think that process was really about being nimble. Everyone said that the plan for 2020 was there was no plan for 2020. And that idea of meeting your customer wherever they wanted to be, however they wanted to shop, however they wanted to engage, I think is critical from now going forward. I don't think that was just a what did you do? I think that's what we're going to continue to do. And for AE, this idea of social, Gen Z, that is where they spend all of their time. That is their number one passion, is being on social and being in relevant conversations. So creating a sense of community for our audience and for our brand was really important. We wanted to give that to our customers, whether they were ready to shop today or they were going to come and shop later. We wanted to be there in a highly relevant way for our full audience.
Yeah, that's really amazing because it really is about that sort of two-way conversation and that level of engagement that you were able to drive. I want to pivot just a little bit. Today we have a ton of amazing women from amazing brands talking about women in marketing, but I'd love to hear from you. How would you define being a leader at this point in your career?
A strong leader leads by example. And I think there's probably about 5 key qualities that I like to say makes a strong leader. Not just a leader, a strong leader, Sharon. That's the strong point there. They need to have a vision and they need to be able to take other people on that journey. Problem solve. You really need to be able to attack a problem. I mean, the example of the question we just discussed, you have to be agile. You have to be able to solve problems. You need to guide and influence others versus direct them. I think that comes with leadership. That comes with time. That comes with age and patience. You need to be an advocate for others to help get them to be their best selves. That's what a leader does for their team. You help them heighten their strengths, to find them, to get them where they want to go. And lastly, you must lead with integrity and almost a sense of humility. It is very critical to show that side of yourself to your team as you lead.
Yeah, that's amazing. That servant leader mentality, I think, goes a long way and really helps to build truly strong teams. One of the things that you shared earlier, sort of in your journey and your career trajectory, is that you have also changed as a manager in the process of becoming a mother. And obviously, I'm sure a lot of the people watching today are mothers themselves. Share with us sort of what that was like and some of the feedback that you received from one of your colleagues.
Yes, I will share a story with all of you that I got to share with Sharon. There is a wonderful marketer named Laura out there, and I was lucky enough to meet her during my time at Coach and hire her to be on my team, pre-children. And then she stayed with me at Coach, where I had both of my children, and then later came with me to American Eagle. And when she eventually left American Eagle, she gave me some very direct feedback about how I evolved as a leader. And she described me as a machine who constantly pushed and never paused seeking perfectionism. Those are tough words to hear. And she said, following, becoming a mother and evolving, she said that I developed a sense of patience and prioritization and balance. And I think this idea of empathy in the sense that people are actually more than who they are at work. There are more to us. We all wear many, many hats. So I think that becoming a mother evolved who I was as a person, but it also just evolved how I showed up. It evolved my self-awareness to how I was interacting with others. And it gave me a sense of, again, to say humility that I didn't see before, and a way of interacting with my team in such a different way because I saw them as more than just the machines. And that was a tough lesson for me, but ultimately it made me a stronger leader, and it was good to hear it. I think part of it was motherhood. I think part of it was age, but all good things.
Yeah, that's such an amazing story. I think there's been lots of conversations, particularly, given everything that's occurred in the pandemic, and empathy's certainly been a major theme. And I think everyone has obviously wanted more grace during this time, a lot more empathy. Um, I mean, just from a tactical standpoint, how has empathy shown up not only for your teams, but for your customers? Because I think everyone, for the past year has embraced some level of trauma, depression, hardship, whatever it may be. But how has it shown up for your teams and for your customers?
Empathy, by definition, is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. And the two most important words there are understand and share. And if we think about the question you just asked me, the pandemic has given us an ability to unite. We understand very much what one another are going through. We understand what our teammates are going through. We understand what our customers are going, because we share those same emotions, those same feelings that you just discussed. So I think it has leveled the playing field in a way that everyone was in this, very overused statement, we're all in this together, but really does ring true. So empathy has come across in terms of how we interact with our teams, meaning we knew what the other one was up against. You watched the person on the other end of the screen trying to keep a straight face while their toddler was pulling their hair. That required empathy, but you had it because you might have been doing the same thing the day before. I think in terms of our customers, we let our customers, we let our brands, we let our teammates into our homes in a way in our personal lives that were never seen before. So I think it broke down traditional barriers in terms of how we communicated. At American Eagle, we launched a series called At Home with AE. We were letting our customers into our home, and we hoped that we were coming into theirs. They were interacting with our brands in a very different way. So I think this united front is what caused us to all have this heightened sense of empathy.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I love the idea of people coming into your homes.
Yeah.
Um, I know often, when people have our titles, often people think that we're not approachable. And it's hard to get on our schedules. No, you're the most approachable person, Ashley. But you talked a lot about, and I've had the same experience, where now you're getting to interact with people that you don't normally get to interact. And that was one of the silver linings coming out of the pandemic. Can you kind of expound upon sort of what we discussed in that process and what you learned?
This is one of my silver linings, to your point, of the pandemic was my team. So, you see your team. My team is actually in different geographies, so some I see more than the others, and you get the nod, the smile from some people, the boss is coming type look. And what happened in the pandemic is we created this virtual environment where, again, let people into our homes. People saw me in a very different light, without makeup, the ponytail on the head, the kids everywhere, the whole thing. And it created a connection with people on my team who I did not know. I had a girl on my team recently. Her name is Melanie, and she presented a strategy to take over a project to me directly. And I would tell you that pre-COVID, she would not have done that. She wouldn't have felt comfortable because she now knew me. She knew I would be open. And I will tell you that the brilliance that I've uncovered of people by getting to know them better, both personally and professional, is one of my favorite things that have come out of the pandemic. I've gotten to know people. I've met their children, I've seen their dogs, but I also, in terms of how they think and how we partner together, it creates opportunity for us to be more inclusive with our teams and give access. So I also think it's broken down the hierarchy in a certain way, because we're all just sitting behind a computer screen. Nobody's in a big office. We're all just the same square in the Brady Bunch view. So that's one of the best things that comes out of the pandemic. And I can't wait to see these people in real life. And instead of getting a nod, getting a smile, or one day maybe a hug, we'll see. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's definitely a great silver lining coming out of the pandemic, is breaking down some of those barriers and preconceived notions about who we are just as people. But the added benefit is now you get to spark all these new ideas, all this great innovation comes out of it. And that's a really, really phenomenal thing. So something I think we all really look forward to continuing post this, stay at home pandemic period of time. So really good things. Um, Sort of switching gears a bit. Um, when you look at what's facing, women in marketing today, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges? Obviously, you've got a lot on your plate. You've got teams that are across geographies. You've got a lot of new technology. You've got social. You've got new media platforms popping up every day. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges facing women today going into marketing?
I think I should preface the conversation by saying there's no doubt that we are all, men, women, all of us, juggling more things than ever before. We've officially redefined the word multitasking. I think we should take that up with Webster and try to sort that out, because who knew we could do so many things in a day? I think when I think about the challenges that are facing women, I think about my role. And with my role, and a role like yours, comes opportunity, but also comes responsibility. I am influencing and communicating with one of the most pivotal generations there ever was. And to your point, the number of ways to communicate two-way have never been greater. We're setting the tone for future generations. And I'm coming at that with a very diverse perspective, right? I'm a woman, I'm a marketer, I'm a leader, and I'm a mother. So those decisions you're making through a lens of how each of those decisions will impact the customer, of course, very obvious. My team, who some of them are peers, some of them are Gen Zers themselves, and my children. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. 3-year-old's a girl, so of course for her especially. AE makes it possible for me to have this opportunity to break down the barriers for women, to set an example and to lead in a way that I would be proud for both my team and my family. But the biggest challenge is what you've signed up for. The responsibility that comes with that is something that should not be taken lightly. And I think when you start to be a person who leads with a vision, but also empathy and wearing many hats, it makes you realize the gravity of the decisions that you're making and how you're interacting with others. We've come into contact with many causes this year, many crises, many situations. You named a few in the beginning of the conversation that you need to navigate with a sense of responsibility that is way bigger than a social post. And I think that is the biggest challenge we all face.
Yeah. Now, it's been amazing just the level of intersections happening. And I think, there's a unique opportunity for women in this landscape around that and how we problem solve, how we communicate, and how we interact. Um, I know we talked and touched upon this a little bit, during the height of the Black Lives Movement this summer, every brand issued a statement of some sort. And we can all imagine the challenges. Some, didn't get great feedback. Tell me, what was your thought process going into that? And in looking back on it now, with, we're now in the midst of the trial. We expect there to be other things to happen around the George Floyd case. How do you feel that you're going to approach it now, moving forward?
First of all, I want to say that as a leader, that was probably one of the most challenging experiences of my professional and personal life. You and I discussed the fact that you are, again, similar to my previous statement, have a responsibility to many different groups. And when you are touching on a topic like this, you not only have your customers and your family and yourself and your team, but you also work for a publicly traded company. You have investors, you have press. We have all of these things all compounded with the heavy heart and emotion that we all take with us on a daily basis. I am very proud of how we handled it, how we navigated it. There was so much thought put through into this because there is no precedent. There was no statement to pick up and copy. There was no editing. There was nothing. There was nothing that anyone could use to help navigate it. So what I would say in terms of how I go through it in the future, it's going to be with open eyes. I think we have to have open eyes to what's happening around us. We need to have open eyes to our customer and our audience and what they are going through, because it is very real to watch your teams and your customers be going through something so emotional. So you need to be relevant. And I think that we need to just be prepared to be agile. I don't think that I'm ready to tell you what I think that we're going to do, because I think that this world changes too much every day for us to go in with a plan, because we need to be cognizant of everything happening around us all of the time.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Agility is really the name of the game. Um, you know, Marketing has evolved so much over the years, and some of the personal traits and characteristics you talked about, but also some of the hard skills have really changed. When you think about, starting for, many of the people who may be on this call who are perhaps early in their careers, midway points, what guidance would you give to them about how should they advance in their careers? Do they become a specialist? Do they stay a generalist? What things should they obtain from a skills perspective that would be most beneficial to them? And how can they position themselves? It's still an incredibly competitive marketplace.
100% agreed. I would say you need to have a clear vision for yourself, and you need to be able to take other people on that journey. 2, you need to be present. And the reason why I say that is you have to celebrate at some point what you've done, but also allow yourself to pause, to create clarity, to create your next vision. If you do not pause, you cannot accept what you've done and then decide what you're going to do next. In terms of your question about being a specialist or a generalist, I think that's about being open. Think about when I was starting out in my career, or you were starting out in your career, and I would have said to you, one day there is going to be this team of people who pays other people who aren't famous for anything a lot of money to take a picture of themselves and put it on this thing called the internet. So when you think about it like that, you must be open to opportunities. You must be open to people. You must be open to new ideas. So have your vision, but make sure that vision is agile. So I couldn't tell you if you should be a generalist or if you should be a specialist. You need to be open and see where it takes you. I think another really important thing that I've learned and I really stress to my team is you need to figure out the balance of when to flex your strategic muscle and when it's time to execute. I think that is a fine balance that as we go through our careers, trips us up a bit. You go from being, when you're most junior, a pure executor. Then you want to have strategy. So then you become a strategist. But when do you have to decide that you need to flex both? Because those times will come where you need to pivot. And lastly, be brave. You can do it. I think that's like another big thing, especially for women. Be brave. You can do it. Believe in yourself.
Wow, that's great advice. I definitely lean in heavily. Be curious. You're right. I would have never thought we'd be paying people what we pay people to take selfies uh, everywhere. And if I had known that was going to become a career, I would have invested more time in cultivating my selfie game. But who knew?
Do you imagine, like, before cell phones, if you were just standing around holding your, little camera, taking pictures of yourself, people would have thought you were crazy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Things have changed tremendously. So that's definitely the name of the game. You got to be up for it. Um, you talked to, you were saying, you were thinking about earlier in your career. Uh, if you were giving yourself some advice, looking back, talking to younger Ashley, what would you tell Ashley now? Younger Ashley about career, life, what's ahead?
I would say trust your gut. I think that especially now as marketers, we are inundated with data, and that data is amazing. I am not taking away from the data. I love data, but you need to trust your gut when it comes to your decisions professionally and personally. Nobody knows you better than yourself. Invest in yourself. It's one of the most important things you could do. And that can come in many different ways. Investing in yourself could be having a coach, a leadership coach, an executive coach. Investing in yourself could be therapy. It could be going for a walk, which seems so monumental in today's world, but it is important to put yourself first. Enjoy the ride and be patient, which I would imagine you're picking up as a theme for me. And lastly, balance, 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 balance. It is all about balance. You need to find that fine place where you can be happy in your personal life, be happy in your professional life, and find what works for you. They're going to flex up and down at different times in your life, and that's okay. And you just need to be okay with giving each one of them air when they need it.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, I've got one more question for you, Ashley, before we take some questions from the audience, because we've gotten quite a few in the Q&A. But, yesterday, as I mentioned, we celebrated International Women's Day. So what does it mean to you, and what's your hope for women in marketing?
So this really comes out of an interaction I had with a boss. Her name was Kyle. And she did not purposely try to teach me a lesson. It's just something that happened that really impacted me. She really led by example. And what happened was one day she said, I'm going to leave at 4:00 because my daughter has a volleyball game. I won't be available. That sounds like a very basic statement. But that for me was a sign that you could have boundaries, that we all didn't have to tell secrets. Oh my gosh, I do stuff outside of these four walls. I have a life. Oh my gosh, I go to the doctor, right? Those boundaries and the confidence that she gave me to embrace the fact that I was a mother, embrace the fact that I was a marketing leader who hopefully will one day be a CMO, that I have hobbies, that I, have to go to the dentist. What I hope for women is that we can all have the confidence to know that you can have all aspects be important in your life. And it's okay for everyone to know that. They don't need to compete. They can coexist in a very positive way. I think the second piece is pay it forward and set an example. I think that's really critical for all of us. And I would really say to everybody on this call, and that could be as simple as something like this and just talking and sharing, to that one LinkedIn request you get for somebody who, just has some questions, or taking an extra 10 minutes with somebody in the office to give them some advice and mentoring them. And lastly, more female CEOs, more female CMOs, more C's. I want my 3-year-old daughter, who unfortunately today just wants to be Mulan, but one day she will hopefully want to be something other than a Disney princess. I want her to not have the conversations that you and I are having. It shouldn't even be a question about what she can be. And super thankful for the world that, I've been lucky enough to grow up in, where I haven't for the most part really felt that, but it is still a conversation. And hopefully, when she's older, it won't be, and she can be more than a Disney princess.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. It's always wonderful when women are supporting other women. We've had quite a
100%.
few questions come up. Um, so I wanted to make sure we left ample time for them, but I'm going to do a fast follow on this one.
Sure.
One of the attendees asked, what's your advice for finding the balance you mentioned? It feels now more than ever that the boundaries of work-life balance are especially blurred.
One, embrace it. That would be my first piece of advice. You cannot pretend that it's not happening. So what I mean by that is, don't try to hide your kids in a corner, because they're here. We all know that they're there. And if they smile and they laugh and they ask you for a cookie, it's okay. We all know we're doing it. So once you kind of get okay with that emotionally and letting people see that side of you, that empathy, I'm talking very professionally, okay, honey, that like kind of two-toed part of yourself, I think that you become more comfortable with it and you can embrace it. I think too, you have to set those boundaries. You have to lead by example, and only you can do that for yourself. And once you do it, when you say to yourself, for example, something that I do, I try that for at least 1 hour a night before I put my kids to bed and I'm with them after work, to put my phone away. I don't bring it with me in the playroom. I just keep it on the stand, because it's just, you just want that rush of checking the email every 2 seconds. You can't miss anything. So I would say create the boundaries, enforce them, and embrace what you're dealing with.
Okay. All right. Next question from the audience. Can you tell us more about the In Home with American Eagle Outfitters campaign? What a great concept.
Sure. So during the height of the pandemic, we were trying to find these different ways to connect with our audience, bring the sense of community that I talked about before. And during holiday, instead of in real life activations, we had to think about ways to invite people in and relate to them. So we launched this series, At Home with AE, which was started as a virtual concert series where we were bringing live music into our audience's home, but then developed into these surprise and delight moments for our customers, where we had people like Addison Rae, people like Noah Beck, people like Wisdom, people like the Pittman sisters, who were hosting these Zoom communities of customers where they would maybe teach them how to do a TikTok dance, but then they did questions just like this. And imagine the look on a group of Gen Z young girls' eyes when Noah Beck answered their questions. I actually had one girl who went like this, oh, I think I'm gonna die. Like it was just this moment of letting them come into American Eagle, of inviting them into our home through the extensions of our talent and the experience we created for the holidays. And you'll see it continue over the next few months, but hopefully it will soon not be At Home with AE. It'll be Get Out There with AE or something like that. But it is a great program.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really awesome. The next question comes from Isabel Bayer. How can brands that have been around for hundreds of years stay relevant and attract the Gen Z demographic without sacrificing their brand identity?
Well, I love a heritage brand. As I said, I worked at Coach for 10 years, so I'm all about a heritage brand. I believe in two keywords, being present and being relevant. And what I mean by that is, think about where Gen Z spends their time. First, easy answer, social. Be there, show up where they are. But you have to show up with content that resonates with them. So I'll use an example from Coach just because it's the most relevant example for me. There's a story about how the first Coach bag was made from the leather patina of a baseball glove. Could you create an AR experience where the leather baseball glove comes to life? there are ways to tell your story in the right place, in the right way, that will bring it to life. A heritage story and the value and the quality that comes with a brand is not something that Gen Z doesn't appreciate. You just need to tell that story in a different way so that they get it. They're not going to read a 10-page pamphlet like we did. So that would be what I would do. Just think outside the box. Think about how they consume media. Think about how they consume content, and then put your story in those formats.
So a fast follow-up to that, another question that we got was, what is the next hot platform you see Gen Z migrating to?
Someone wants all my secrets.
I do.
I don't know. I mean, there's so much going on right now. Obviously, there's a lot of chatter about Clubhouse.
Mhm.
Everyone's been talking about Clubhouse. Brands are starting to dip their toes in, but it is audio based. So kind of taking a social platform where traditionally I would say the majority of the most popular platforms are more visual based. I think Clubhouse is definitely one to watch. We're seeing a little bit around Dispo, which I think is sort of an interesting one. And I think the verdict's still out on Triller. And I don't know what else. I'm sure that more and more and more are going to continue to pop up. It's hard to keep up, quite frankly. And I was talking to my team the other day. I mean, how many things can you check in one day is a big question. You used to just have to check your email and your voicemail. Now you have to check your email, your voicemail, your Facebook, your Insta, your Snap, your TikTok. How many things can you really check? So I don't know. I would stay on top of those. I would stay on top of Clubhouse would probably be my number one.
Yeah. So that brings up another question that came through chat. How do you keep up with Gen Z content, and what sources are you consuming? You listed a bunch there.
Yeah. Well, what sources am I consuming as a person personally? I have a lot of sources that I consume for my professional career, and then I have sources that I use that are actually for me personally, which are separate. But in terms of sources of how I keep up, I mean, number one, I will tell you that the most valuable people on my team, some of them are the Gen Zers. There's nothing better than having people on your team who are your target audience. They are living and breathing customers who tell me everything that's happening. And of course, we partner with different agencies. VaynerMedia is an agency that we partner with for social listening to understand innovation. And I would also say, for me, we have very close relationships with the social platforms themselves. Staying in touch with them and understanding what they're doing. Nobody knows their customer better than the platforms themselves. And lastly, we spend a lot of time on social media, more than I would like to admit. I do not like when I get that how much time spent on my phone message every single week. But I'm consuming everything all the time, toggling between 100 different things just to stay grounded in how the customer is consuming things.
Awesome. Another question that we got in chat was, how is the digital transformation of the marketing and media industries impacting brand marketing?
I'm going to read that one second, Sharon. Sorry. Can you just repeat it?
Sure. It's how is the digital transformation of the marketing and media industries impacting brand marketing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question. I think that it's been an evolution. So I think brands have been going on the journey of digital transformation for some time now. I think in terms of how it is affecting brand marketing is more in the sense that as marketers, you need to balance the platform or the media vehicle, which let's use influencers as an example. So you're leveraging an influencer to amplify your brand, which to me is probably one of the biggest forms of media today is these influencers. How do you balance how much of the brand shines through versus the talent or the media vehicle? That used to be, what was Vogue's brand voice versus your brand, but now you have so many other mediums. You have coming to life in TikTok. How does TikTok show up? How do you come to life in an AR experience? How does your talent show up your brand? So I think it's more about not transformation, but balance to some degree. How do you know what the balance is in terms of how much your brand's voice shines versus make it authentic to the vehicle that you're using to tell the story? So I think it's just gotten a lot trickier to make an authentic brand story when leveraging some of these more modern forms of communication and media.
So when you think about that process, has the role of brand marketing in the organization become more elevated? Because now you're literally connecting the dots between supply chain, between finance, between, product development. Uh, has all of that, have you started to see those silos break down and the role of brand marketing be elevated?
I have, but for a little bit of a different reason than you just said. If we think about Gen Z specifically and what we know about them, they care most about the brands that they appreciate their values, right? That they believe in the brands themselves. It's not just about the best deal anymore or whatever is cool. It's really about the brand ethos and what they're made up of, what they believe in, their philanthropic efforts, what they stand for, diversity, inclusion, etc. So I see that the role of brand marketing has been elevated, saying that everybody has to live up to that expectation. The customer wants to see it, but also the people who work here. So I would say absolutely, because all of those different teams need to live, breathe, and eat and sleep who the brand is in order to get people to be committed to the brand and to believe in it.
That's definitely a shift for a lot of brands, I'm sure, to think about sort of that marriage of profitability and purpose. And I think we're starting to see that show up more and more. And definitely, I think, it's not just Gen Z, but I think all consumers now are starting to demand that. In the time remaining, um, the question is, as leaders, you're always developing your skills. What are you looking to improve on in 2021? And what skills would you like your marketing team to develop?
I'm going to answer about my team first. That's an easier one for me. Um, in terms of my team, I think that it's not improve. I think it's continue. And I would like to see my team continue to innovate. The innovation that this team has put forth this year in the toughest situation ever is something I'm so proud of. And the way I described recently in an interview for a candidate about what I'm most proud of about working where I work and with the people that I work is if somebody asked me to do a recap or tell them what I've been working on, I can list 100 things that my team has done this year and how they've innovated, how they've changed it. I'm no longer writing my review and saying, oof, what am I going to put for number 2? So I think that balance of strategy and execution that I talked about earlier and just continuing to innovate and make things come to life is what I would continue to push my team to do. Clearly, I'm passionate about this topic. For myself, full disclosure, getting close, I really, I try to honestly work on my ability to pause and listen. I tend to get very excited about things and often jump in with a point of view or try to problem solve quite quickly. And I'm really working on giving the room more air. And that is a full disclosure answer.
Oh, I think I'm right there with you. I told you we were kindred
I
spirits.
know, Sharon, we're
I
on the
get
same page.
excited on stuff too, and you just like chomping at the bit. But yeah,
We
given that,
didn't interrupt each other really even once this entire time.
I know we worked it out ahead of time. One last question for
Sure.
you, Ashley. Um, what what's in store for American Eagle this year? We're not really out of the pandemic. We're still at home. But what are your big initiatives this year?
Big initiatives. So big initiatives from a marketing perspective and what I'm super excited about would be number 1, continue to be best in class in social and innovation. How that comes to life, you'll have to stay tuned for. New ways of commerce, I think is huge. I think we're going to continue to see that trend, and especially with Gen Z, we need to jump on it. 3 is innovation in jeans and denim and really pushing this idea of fashion. I think back to school this year is going to be an awakening. Jay Schottenstein recently said it's going to be like the roaring 20s in our earnings call this week. I couldn't agree with him more. There's probably a more modern interpretation of that phrase, but I think it's going to be about fashion this year. And lastly, I am very, very excited about our passion strategy around gaming for our guys. Gaming has taken off in a way like none of us would have ever expected. Another example, Sharon, of something, if we had a crystal ball of knowing what would happen with an Atari and what it would be today, I think you're going to see us come out big in the gaming space.
Ooh, lots of good stuff to look for. Well, it's been a real treat, Ashley.
You too, Sharon.
Thank you. Always love the conversation, and I will be watching. So thanks
Yeah.
again.
Thanks, Sharon. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you both, Ashley and Sharon. I thoroughly enjoyed your conversation. And Ashley, what a powerful story about your evolution as a leader and the role that empathy plays not only among your internal teams, but also the American Eagle Outfitters customers. And I especially loved all the advice you both gave for girls and women, but ultimately for everyone, to be brave, to believe in yourself, trusting your gut, and finding balance in life. So thank you both for your time today. What a great conversation.
Thanks, Izzy.
Take care.